Hi, everybody. Welcome. Sorry, I'm going to fix the reverb.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the July Make for All community call. Apologies for the little technical glitch. My name is Steph Santoso, and I'm the director of Maker Initiatives at Citizen Schools and the lead for Make for All. So this is the first of our monthly calls, which are really designed to give commitment makers an opportunity to share more about their work, to really provide asks for help and provide offers to help as well, just recognizing that each of you have areas of expertise and have really developed some great resources based off the work, and those could be helpful to other folks in the community. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating. I also wanted to just review some highlights from our most recent call for commitments and our commitment announcements that we did on June 14th. So just over a little over a month ago.
Hey, everyone. Steph, are you still there? We lost your audio, it seems.
Oh, sorry about that. Maybe I should start from the beginning. That's my colleague, Megan. What part where did you lose me, Megan?
You were just saying how the commitment event was about a month ago.
Okay, got it. Thanks so much. Last month we announced more than 50 commitments in support of maker-centered learning, and as part of that, those included new initiatives, expanded programs and partnerships. Really excited to just reinforce that those commitments are going to be reaching more than 768,000 students over the next 3 years, which is pretty impressive, I think, for our first call for commitments. And really just a big thank you to you all for the organizations who stepped up and really developed some really innovative programs that are going to continue to broaden access to maker-centered learning. As part of those commitments, we had 149 communities represented from all across the U.S. We had, these are real, true collaborations. So we had 295 organizations that really, and their partners that really embodied those commitments. And if you want to learn more about the commitments themselves, details about the commitments, feel free to visit the Make for All website, and I included the hyperlink there that will specifically take you to the commitments catalog where you can get more information. So for organizations who haven't made commitments to support maker-centered learning in our most recent call, these calls are actually a great opportunity to learn more about what innovative work is happening in this area around the country. So it's really it's a great learning opportunity. Your organization might make a connection to someone else who you want to collaborate with, or you might learn about a program or an initiative that you might be interested in supporting. And really hoping that this will also perhaps inspire organizations who haven't yet participated to think about developing a newer expanded initiative focused on supporting maker-centered learning moving forward. So let's actually get started. We have an hour together, and so what I really wanted to do was to give some time to commitment makers to share more about the work that they're doing. And so we'll hear from 3 different commitment making organizations in the first part of our call. Then we'll switch gears to hear from a few organizations that have been leading the way in funding maker-centered learning initiatives. And this is just, you can see on your screen if you're joining by online. You can see the call agenda. To make sure that each of our speakers have enough time, we're going to hold all discussion and Q&A until the last half of the call. So even if you have a specific question for a particular presenter, if you could just hold that until the last half of the call, we'll have plenty of time to field those questions and comments then. So right now, I'll turn it over to my colleague Megan, who Megan is a program manager for Citizen Schools US 2020 City Network. And she's going to just help to tee up our presenters. First, we're going to hear from Cara Lesser, who is the founder and executive director of Kid Museum, which is based in Bethesda, Maryland.
Great. Cara, you are now a presenter.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. And hopefully everyone can see the screen too.
Yep, you're all set.
Okay, great. Okay, it's hard to tell from here, but it looks like it's working. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Steph, for inviting us to be a part of this. And we're just thrilled to be part of the Make for All commitment effort. I've been connected with Steph and colleagues from way back when in White House days. So it's really exciting for us to come full circle here. Let's see, let me get that down. So Kid Museum, for those who have not met us yet, we are a new organization. We're 5 years old. We have started actually with bringing the first Maker Fair to the DC region in 2013 as a way to introduce our goal to bring dynamic maker learning experiences to kids across the DC region. And we opened our doors in fall 2014. We announced our commitment to open the space in the first White House Maker Fair that Steph and others on the call were a part of making happen. And we're pleased to report that we have been making good on that pledge since then. We're now serving 55,000 visitors a year in a mix of programs in our site on the first floor of a public library, as well as a number of activities out in the community. So as you can see, we're a creative learning space that's focused on building skills for the future, really view ourselves as a dynamic hub for maker learning and discovery. And an innovation lab, really in partnership with schools and other community organizations to reimagine what learning looks like for the 21st century. We offer a mix of school programs, after-school weekend camps, as well as professional development and deep partnerships with schools that we'll get into in a minute. There we go. Our mission really centers on empowering kids with skills, mindset, and drive to become creative change makers of the future. And with this audience on the phone, I know I don't need to describe how maker learning is really a full package that helps to fulfill that mission. We're proud that we reach an incredibly diverse population here in the DC region with a focus on low-income students, as well as students of color and girls. 49% of students in our deepest multi-session programs are from low-income neighborhoods, so it's a real commitment to ensure that we're serving the full range of kids in our community. Quickly want to give folks a grounding in how we think about our learning framework. We are grounded in introducing and developing technical skills and competencies. Many of these will be familiar skills to everyone on the phone: robotics and coding, electronics, digital fabrication. We really put that in the context of design, engineering, and invention process, but we also combine it with cultural competence as a core skill that we're working on. So our programs are unique in that they are integrating cultural exploration with a maker experience. We really focus on continued practice of these maker practices that are outlined here: exploration, reflection, collaboration, perseverance, iterative design, and empathy, all with the goal of helping kids to develop these skills and capacities as creative problem solvers, curious, continuous learners, and really identifying as global citizens with the agency and confidence to make a difference. As I said at the outset, we have a wide variety of programs, but really our core is what we call Invention Studio. And this is a deep dive maker program that's delivered during the school day. So we actually have students come to the museum for multiple 2-hour visits. This is a program that is delivered at the elementary and middle school level, so it slightly varies at each of those levels. But in each instance, students are coming for a series of 2-hour visits where they're learning about design engineering, fabrication, electronics, coding. We embed teacher professional development in that, as well as curriculum integration to bring the program into the classroom. And it culminates in a community showcase where students are presenting their work to their peers and to the community more broadly. This past year at the middle school level, all of the Invention Studio program, it culminates in the Invent the Future Challenge, where students are working in small teams to design and develop prototypes of inventions to protect the planet. And you can see here some of the highlights of the numbers that we reached. We had 850 kids participate in this community challenge this year. 500 plus of those were in this deep dive Invention Studio program that was funded through our school system, local government, as well as private supporters. But really a broad reach. We're reaching 41 schools, and very much a community effort with, you can see teachers, adult volunteers, parent coaches, so a broad-based community effort to engage kids in this Maker Challenge. We have partnered with Harvard, the Behr Institute, to look at outcomes from the program, and have been focused on both STEM engagement as well as broader 21st century skills. And you can see here some of the highlights in terms of building student interest in science, technology isn't listed here, but technology and engineering in particular have been focal points over the past year, but as well as perseverance, critical thinking, really the broader 21st century skills as context for what they're learning. So this gets to our commitment statement. So for Make for All, we made a commitment to expand this deep multi-session maker learning experience to reach 25,000 students annually in our community, with an emphasis on low-income students, students of color, and girls. And this is really in partnership with our local school system, as well as a variety of community supporters, as we outlined before. Our goal is that every 3rd grader and every 7th grader in our school district will participate in this Invention Studio program. So this is a way to ensure that we're reaching every student in the course of their student experience in school. So Stephanie asked for us to highlight some places where, as we just made this commitment, we are working toward it with our school system and others, but we do have a number of priorities that we're focused on to achieve the goal. The first is we are working toward a larger physical site for our museum. We are currently still located in the 1st floor of a public library. It's about a 7,000 square foot space where we're serving 55,000 people a year, but we know that we need more physical capacity to deliver on the scale of this program, and that's something we're actively working on. We're also working on developing a deeper teacher training institute to really broaden the professional development and grow the teacher partners back in the classroom, as well as the teachers who we're working with in the community to deliver this program. We are actively piloting curriculum integration strategies at the elementary and middle school levels to explore how best to build this into the classroom experience. And lastly, we're looking to deepen the evaluation of our program outcomes to really drive the optimal impact of the program. So that's an area that we really welcome input from folks on this call, all of these areas, but particularly around evaluation, I think, to identify potential partners and opportunities to broaden how we're measuring and conceptualizing the, well, I should put those in the opposite order, but conceptualizing and measuring the outcomes of the program. Is we know in this field, sometimes staying focused on the STEM components, that's an important initial hook for many of our partners, but I think that we're hoping to broaden to a STEM plus kind of mentality that's really looking at the creative problem solving and the broader skill set that we know Maker Learning is delivering. So that's my attempt to pack it into 7 minutes, Steph. I don't know if there's any questions or if you want to save questions for later.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Cara. I think just to keep us rolling, if folks have responses or questions or answers to some of Cara's questions, if you could just write those down and then we'll come back to them in the second half, that would be great. But that was a really robust overview. I know it's a lot to ask you to pack so much in 7 minutes, so thank you. And our next, so we'll move on to our next commitment maker, and that is WhyMaker. And sharing that work will be Liz Gallo, who is the founder and CEO of WhyMaker. And Liz, it looks like you now are unmuted and have presenter access.
Hello, how are you?
Good, we can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Okay, so my name is Liz Gallo. I call myself the Chief Education Officer of WhyMaker, also known as the CEO. WhyMaker is a STEM and Maker-Ed professional development company. We focus, we're working really closely with teachers to develop project plans for them to implement Maker and STEM projects into their classrooms. We don't want it to be extra an add-on. We want it to be something that teachers feel really comfortable and confident to do in their classroom. We believe in transdisciplinary education because nothing in the real world is as singularly focused as our current education and our schooling for our students. And we truly believe that if we give kids the opportunity to experience learning the way the rest of us do and experience the world the way the rest of us do, that they'll be more connected and engaged in school. We teach secretively, almost it feels like sometimes, the design thinking mindset to help students be creative and flexible problem solvers. As a teacher, I always have taught using the design thinking process for my whole teaching career, and I've seen kids excel so much and learn so much and see how much they can grow throughout, a maker-based project, that I really believe that bringing design thinking to all students in all subjects will really help our kids be the leaders they need to be in the future. So our commitment is that in 2019-2020, we will work with 2,000 educators to provide Maker education professional development, which will create opportunities for 40,000 students across the US to engage in making inside and outside of the classroom. We'll collaborate with schools of education, teachers associations, schools, lots of different partners throughout this year-long journey. These are some pictures from our recent trainings. The one all the way on the left side was at a college, SUNY Buffalo, and it was a faculty meeting for the education faculty, so the professors who teach pre-service teachers, and they were so excited to bring back like maker education principles to their college students in order for them to bring them to their schools. So we love working with universities like that. So far, this is pretty cool. So I started collecting data as of July 1st, and our goal of 2,000 teachers, we've reached 93 teachers in 3 weeks, which is 4.65% of our goal, and 18,384 students. What I realized really quickly about that goal is that most of the teachers that we work with are like K-5 librarians or 6 through 8 technology teachers. So they teach way more than the 20 student classroom, which I didn't take into account. But reaching 2,000 teachers is the real goal here. This was a training recently in Connecticut where we were doing like a robotics training. We're so happy, it was cute. So how do we know this? So I know this is a little blurry, but prior to doing a workshop or training with teachers, I ask them the questions on the left, the pre-workshop questions, approximate number of students you teach here. And then I also use this survey to figure out how we can help them best during this training, and how might I attend to your needs in a way that'll be meaningful for you? What do you need to leave with to feel your time was well spent? And what should I do or not do in order to make sure you feel comfortable during this workshop? Those 3 questions provide some really valuable feedback and information to the presenter to really connect with the audience and create meaningful, powerful professional development for those teachers. After this, every day, I go on a daily data collection form and just write down the number of teachers we affected and the number of students that we reached, and then just some notes about location or topic. And this is a really simple way for us to collect data about how many teachers we're reaching. So if anyone out there needs Maker Ed teacher training, working on, like Cara was talking about, her teacher training institute, anything like that, we work anywhere in the US and the world. And we're doing some work with Mexico coming up. We're headed off to China in a little bit. Work with university faculty, after school programs, summer camps. We do a ton of individual coaching with teachers, hoping to do some more of that soon. Anybody who needs training, we'd be willing to like work with you and help you figure that out. We consider ourselves an equal opportunity teacher training company. So that means that our professional development is accessible and meaningful for all teachers, regardless of abilities, comfort level, experience, or status. So whether you're an absolute newbie or you're a pro, we'll work with you anywhere in that spectrum. So some more of our workshop offerings are on our website, and they are totally customizable. So whatever you guys need to be successful, you can reach out to me at my email address, which is right there, and my phone number, GChat, emails, text messages, whatever you would like. And starting soon, we're hoping to have some live, we're not hoping, it's happening. We're having some live virtual weekly professional development series. So where a cohort of teachers will come together virtually in a synchronous environment through like video chat every week to talk about Maker education and what they're doing in their classroom, and help them build out project plans and build this like great community of makers, teachers to support each other. So that is everything about WhyMaker.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Liz, for that overview. Our third commitment maker that'll be sharing her work with us today is Connie Liu, and she's the founder and executive director of Project Invent. Take it away, Connie.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you great.
Okay, I'm just dragging over the screen, so let me give it a second. Okay, and it looks like my screen is showing now?
Yep, we can see your slides.
Perfect. All right, well, hello everyone, I'm Connie. I'm the founder and executive director of Project Invent. I'll tell you a little bit about Project Invent to start. We work with high schools across the country. We're a nonprofit working with high schools, empowering students to invent technologies for social good. So we train teachers in design thinking, making, and entrepreneurship in order to lead these programs where students are actually going out into their community, working with real people to solve real challenges in their own backyard using technology. So our goal is to empower every student as an innovative problem solver. And the way we do that is through building solutions to community problems. So our students work with people like Jimmy, who's blind, and develop new technologies for him to prevent the problem of veering, where he's actually been hit by cars twice because it's really difficult to walk in a straight line without vision. Or our students have worked with people like Jose, who is a teenager in their school with cerebral palsy in White Salmon, Washington, and developed a adaptive keyboard and mouse, so he's able to use a computer just like any of his peers. Or they're working with people like Abigail in East Palo Alto, California, to learn about the challenges she faces with chronic pain and mobility while still working as a practicing artist. So how do those problems affect her, and how can they use their making and engineering and entrepreneurship skills in order to develop new solutions to help people in their own community. And within that process, students are going through a lot of really rich learning moments. So they're interviewing real people and learning about what those challenges look like. They're building innovative solutions that they come up with. They're testing it with their users. So they're actually integrating their community partner directly into their work throughout the year. And they're learning how to tell the story about the impact of their product. So it's a full year program where students are going from identifying a real problem in their community, actually working with those people and using making and entrepreneurship to actually launch that product. At the end of the year, they get to present at Demo Day. They all fly out to Silicon Valley. And then this year, we're also opening a Demo Day in New York, where students get to present to top investors and tech executives their products to win funding to continue making. So through that process, what that looks like is students are going through 3 pillars of design thinking, engineering, and entrepreneurship. So that design thinking piece brings them to coming up with an impactful idea, but we don't want them to just stop there, because a lot of that rich learning and what I love about what everyone's been presenting on today is that empowerment that comes from making. Because when you come up with an innovative idea, it really matters that you're able to make that idea a reality. And Maker Education gives you the tools to do that. So the students develop a working product of their idea for impact, and then they get to go beyond the classroom as well. So learn the entrepreneurship skills to be able to pitch their product, share that impact, and actually create a business and launch it in the real world. So we're currently working with 30 different schools as of this year, all across the country, and then piloting one internationally this year as well in China. And the impact that we're seeing across the board is really about empowerment. How do we get students seeing that they are able to make a global impact? So 87% of our students are more confident in making a global impact. 81% show growth across all of creativity, grit, and empathy. We really care about growing not only the skills, but those mindsets that help students be innovative problem solvers for whatever problem they come across in their life. And then we have a really great opportunity to work with these students that are continuing their projects even after Demo Day, and that's pretty unprecedented in project-based learning to see that 73% of these students are opting into continuing their projects because they're working with real people in their community, and because that gives them an opportunity to see the impact that they can have by making their idea a reality. The other thing that we look at is teacher impact. So really giving our teachers a really strong experience so they're able to run a project invent team, of course, but also be able to carry this back into their classrooms and be able to transform how their classrooms are run away from a test-taking model to focusing on change making. So 85% of our teachers rank Project Invent in the top 5% of their experiences as educators. 91% of those teachers feel highly equipped to bring design and making back into their everyday classroom after going through the program and leading their students through inventing for social good. And 100% of teachers highly recommend Project Invent to other educators, which we're really blessed to be able to say that and be able to have such great teachers within our community. So our commitment for the following year is to be able to expand the impact of what we've already started bringing to multiple schools. So starting in 2020, we want 50+% of our programs to be in Title I schools. Right now, we have 30 schools this year and 35% of them are Title I, but in order to reach our new goal next year and increase our commitment to getting this into the schools that need it most, we're really gonna need help in 2 ways. One is spreading the word to our target populations, really getting Project Invent and getting teachers aware of the program and aware of the opportunity to be able to be trained in design thinking, making, and entrepreneurship in this really robust way and give their students an opportunity to build really impactful work and really identify and start owning their identities as change makers. And second, always looking for people who are thinking in innovative ways about how to quantify this impact. I think the quintessential question within maker education is we don't want to rely on test scores. We want to rely on metrics of empowerment and improved mindsets of are our students more creative? Are our students better problem solvers because of this? And always looking for additional partners who are finding unique ways to quantify the impact of maker education and work with you guys to be able to continue growing those. And then I know one thing Steph mentioned was ask for a get from people, but also give. And I think the give for Project Invent is we have a really good process for integrating design thinking, technology, making, and social good. So any way that we can be helpful for others within the Make for All network to be able to find new ways to integrate this for the populations that you serve, always happy to help. And that's all that we have for today. And I'm excited to be part of this community that's all thinking about how we can educate for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Connie, for that. And I think it's a great transition. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to be talking with a couple of organizations, leaders from organizations who have been funding a lot of really great work around maker-centered learning and maker education. And the first person that we're going to hear from is Kumar Garg, who is has been a colleague of mine for a number of years. Kumar is the Senior Director of Technology and Society at Schmidt Futures. And then prior to his role there, worked in the Obama administration in a variety of different roles in the White House Office of Science and Tech Policy. In particular, Kumar did a lot of work around the president's priorities really focused on STEM education. So welcome, Kumar, to the call, and feel free to take it away.
Awesome. Well, it's great to be on the call with all of you, and I want to congratulate Steph and the Make for All and Citizen Schools team for an incredible amount of progress that you've made in the past year. You know, I wasn't able to make it down to Nashville. One of my kids broke their arm, so but I was kind of watching and following it along, and it's just incredible what the Maker community is accomplishing. You know, Steph gave a little bit of background, so you know, my background is as a policymaker, and I will forever claim credit for helping hire Steph and making her the first full-time person working on making in the White House ever. And so it's one of the things that I sort of learned in that experience is just that there's a really strong intersection between science and tech policy and the science and tech community, and what are ways that we can actually build really tight partnerships that leverage what's emerging on the technological landscape, what are the ways that we're building community, and what are the ways that we're connecting it to communities and actually using it to solve problems. I did that for a number of years under the White House home, and then since then, one of the things I really focused on was how to sort of carry that work forward. So Schmidt Futures is a pretty young organization. It's a new foundation created by Eric Schmidt in late 2017. And it really sort of tries to sit at the intersection between science, technology, and the public good. And we've been trying as much as possible to sort of think about what are the areas where we can make investments that sort of play an enabling role in sort of harnessing technology for good. So we've been thinking about that in a couple of specific ways. One way that we've been thinking about it is just how do we invest in people at all different parts of their career path, especially folks who are learning science technology skills and making sure that they are getting the opportunities to apply those skills on the problems that matter to them and in their local communities. And so we've been, the Maker community has always had that ethos, and we've been trying to think about that pretty systematically at different career age points. And so one of the ways we've thought about that is what is the pipeline of students coming out of college who might have these skills, and what are the opportunities they get right after college. And so a number of our investments and grants have actually focused on, the way the collegiate experience can really be focused on not just majoring in a discipline, but also minoring in a problem. And one of the ways that we've been trying to bring that to life is actually bringing some of those folks to work with us. And so starting in the fall, we're going to have this thing that we call the Associate Product Manager Program, which will bring on recent graduates, folks who just got their college degree and have a computer science, data science, or science and tech background, and actually have their first 2 years of their career actually be to work with us and apply those skills on public problems. Similarly, we've been sort of investing in the university pipeline on how do you build more engaging courses that actually have students be able to get applied experiences, whether it's working, coming into government and getting these really high quality internship experiences, or they're working with best-in-class nonprofits. We've taken that same philosophy later into people's careers, so people who are mid-career, and saying, what are the ways that you can be having big ideas and really investing in them? And we've started to sort of really invest in having folks sort of think big and then sort of come back to us about how we can be supportive. But we also sort of think that's important early in and thinking about children and sort of young learners. The thing that I've been really excited about on the Maker community side has just been the immense amount of activity that's happening to really link, the work that, for example, you're going to hear from Gregg around Remake, the work that's happening around citizen science and low-cost tools, the work that's happening around how do we sort of infuse project-based learning both inside and outside school, and then how do we sort of think about the role of high-impact volunteering and mentoring. I've been sort of following a lot of the work that Rod Chetty has been publishing around the value of social capital, and just how do we sort of infuse these high-quality relationships where we actually start to build confidence in using science technology for good. So I'm very excited to be on this call. Just a couple of things that we've sort of invested in this area. We've been really excited to support citizen schools and the work that they're doing in high-impact volunteering, and the work that Steph has been doing in sort of helping corral and work with the Maker community. I'm a big fan of the commitments model, partly because I think too often organizations that are doing the work don't get the opportunity to actually showcase their work, dream big, and connect to a larger goal. And I think it's been exciting to see all the work that has come out from it. Similarly, we've actually been also thinking about the role tools can play. And so one of our most recent programs was working with Luminary Labs and the Moore Foundation on really asking the question of what are the next generation of low-cost tools, things that could show up in a maker space, things that could show up in a school and after-school setting that could really help fuel the next generation of scientific curiosity and scientific thinking. And so we just announced the 5 finalists in that, everything from a desktop biolab to a small card that you can put into water to get, the content of what, might be in the water. And we're excited about sort of continuing to invest in the role that tools can play to empower. And then the third area that we've been sort of exploring, was so early, is the role that, new models of financing can play. A lot of the entrepreneurs that really want to focus on youth, kind of struggle under the venture capital model. And we've been sort of experimenting with what are additional ways, whether it's revenue-based investing and other things that could provide, sort of inject new ways to sort of support the community. So I'm excited to be on the call and excited to be to do our part on sort of supporting the community.
Thanks so much, Kumar, and a big thank you again to Schmidt Futures and you in particular for playing such a critical role in helping to initiate the Make For All initiative. Not only was Schmidt Futures a primary funder, but also just your sort of you being a thought partner in this was really integral. So thanks. So next we're going to hear from Gregg Behr, who is the executive director of the Grable Foundation. I've known Gregg for several years now, and he's been doing amazing work on really building out an ecosystem of organizations and individuals in the greater Pittsburgh area who really care about remaking the learning experience for students. So Gregg, thank you so much for joining the call, and you should be able to both have access to presentation mode and then also to be able to speak as well. Gregg, are you online? Okay, I think we're having a little trouble.
I just was unmuted. Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
And I cannot see the screen now, which was here until this moment. So
oh, there you go. Can you see your screen now? We can see your screen. We can see your slides.
You can see my slides?
Or we can see your sharing.
No, I was on kid music. No. Well, here. So I will. If Steph has my slides and can pull them up, I'll speak briefly.
I do. Sure. I have your slides, so I've got them pulled up. And Megan, if you don't mind making me the presenter, that'd be great.
So I'm humbled to follow the 4 presenters, and I'll speak very briefly about a particular place. In this case, the place happens to be Pittsburgh, but I think this could be any place in America with a concentrated focus in this case, in maker-centered learning. The Grable Foundation is a private family foundation that focuses on the well-being of children and youth in our region, particularly kids who, for economic reasons, don't have the same opportunities as their peers. And so we support programs and initiatives ranging from early childhood to enhanced learning in public schools, out-of-school time support, and ways in which parents, families, and caregivers are learning together with their children. And in the context of this work, have been a driving funder behind something called Remake Learning. So if we can turn to the next slide, Remake Learning, simply put, is a learning ecosystem consisting of more than 600 schools, museums, libraries, early learning centers, institutions of higher education, creative industries in our region, focused on our learners. And you have before you our profile of a learner and what we're aiming to accomplish on behalf of young people in this region as we think collectively about all sorts of modern frameworks and pedagogies, including maker-centered learning, but also CS for Pittsburgh, computer science and computational thinking work, STEM and STEAM learning, career readiness and the future of work and what that means. Increasingly now, artificial intelligence and what that means in our learning settings. And so, as much as we can, focusing on the modern learning sciences, what we're learning from learning itself, and how we think about the application of what we're learning about learning in all of the places where kids might be learning. And so our focus is on relevant, engaging, and equitable learning. And for us, there's a deep focus on equity. And for us in this region of Western Pennsylvania, that means learners in poverty, learners of color, rural learners, learners with exceptionalities, and girls in STEM. It's no accident that there were 12 commitments to Make For All from the Pittsburgh region. And that's because of this learning ecosystem we have, part of which, as I described, is focused on maker-centered learning. So if we turn to the next slide, this is a region that for more than 10 years has focused on hands-on, project-based, maker-centered learning. Having developed more than 200 maker spaces in our region's schools, museums, libraries, and other learning institutions. We have more than 20 local professional development and professional learning communities for educators in and out of school in maker-centered learning. We've supported various initiatives and challenges for schools. We've been focused especially on equity and what equity means. What you have before you is a map of some of the 200 maker spaces in our region. And that map there is not to tell us the volume, but to really help us identify the deserts. Where are the places where young people might not have access to maker spaces or something akin to a maker space? And how do we support those communities where there isn't enough invention, tinkering, creative imagination happening? And how do we support those communities and the learning institutions in those places? And a significant focus on family engagement. There are very few adults, unless they're immersed in the maker movement, who plainly understand what maker is. And so helping parents, families, caregivers understand how learning is being remade and how, if their kid is lit up by making, how to support their child and to think of the region as a learning campus and to take advantage of all of these learning maker spaces and the programs and the initiatives in our region. And so we've done that through a variety of ways, most prominently through something called Remake Learning Days. So for each of the past 4 years during 9 days in May, there's been this amazing festival of modern learning designed to help parents understand how learning is being remade. And Maker is a significant part of that. In fact, of the 300 events held in Western Pennsylvania this past May, nearly 100 were maker-centered. And with support from Schmidt Futures and Carnegie Corporation of New York, along with the Grable Foundation for which I work, that work of Remake Learning Days expanded to 10 regions this year, 851 events attended by more than 100,000 families. And then finally, while we're fortunate in this region to have Carnegie Mellon University and other creative industries right in our backyard, like the Carnegie Science Center, or school districts like the Newcastle School District, the Elizabeth Ford School District, and others that have been at the forefront of maker and maker-centered learning, we're also keen always to find world-class partners. And we've been fortunate to work, for example, with US 2020 around making and mentoring, particularly for Black and Brown youth, to work closely with Digital Promise, not only on the maker framework and promise nationally, but for example, this past school year, Digital Promise has been working intensively in 10 schools in our region to support the development of maker spaces and all of the professional learning that goes with that. And for instance, Maker Ed will be hosting their national gathering here in Pittsburgh at the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh, which another institution that's been at the forefront of maker learning. That'll be held this October. So I'm hopeful that some of you listening to this or your colleagues will be joining us here in Pittsburgh in October. So Steph, that's a brief description of how, as a community, we've tried to wrap our arms around this modern framework of maker-centered learning, but to consider it and advance it in the context, as Kumar was describing, of science and technology and what modern learning needs to be to support young people as they acquire the skills, the dispositions, and the knowledge to thrive and flourish.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gregg, for taking the time to provide us with an overview of the over 10 years of work that you've put into this. So right now, I'm just doing a quick time check. We have a little under 10 minutes left in our webinar. I want to give folks that have joined an opportunity to ask questions. And that's that includes speakers as well. If you all have questions for participants or questions for each other, there are a couple of different ways that you can ask a question. So if you join the webinar online, you can either type your question in the chat box that you see on your dashboard, the GoToWebinar dashboard, or you can use the hand raise button that's on your dashboard, and then that'll signal to us. We'll then just immediately unmute you. And then for those who are joining on the phone, we'll actually unmute the phone lines in a couple minutes, so anyone who's on the phone can ask a question. But feel free to go ahead and either use the chat box or the hand raise option if you have any questions.
Steph, I know at the top of the call, one question came through. I think folks would be interested in having all of the slides that were shared from our different presenters. They just want to know if they'll be shared out after the webinar.
Yeah, we are recording the webinar, so the webinar itself will have a link to it that we'll share out, and then as long as the presenters are okay with it, I'll double check with them. We can also share a copy of the slides, but certainly we will share out a link to the webinar afterwards, so you'll have access to that. So I actually have a question for Cara, if she's still on. I think she's still on. I was curious about how being co-located in a public library has really had an impact on the students and the families that you're able to reach and serve, and how you're thinking about that as you're, thinking about moving to a larger space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So for us, it's been really an amazing opportunity to be clear that this is about a new type of learning. And I think the sort of meta messaging of what we are about has been really reinforced by the co-location with the library. And then, more sort of down into the nitty-gritty of day-to-day, it just has been a great way to expose people who wouldn't necessarily seek out this kind of experience, that they come to the library and wander through our space and take in what's going on. And it's just been a great way to expose the community more broadly to this kind of learning. So I think it's been a great collaboration. We do have particular events where we will directly collaborate and find ways to, link our programs. But there's just benefits in the parallel play as well. So I think that it's been important for us in being clear that we are for the public and that we are an open space for families to explore in. And as we think about next steps, I mean, it's definitely something that we would love to build on, that kind of collaboration with libraries, schools, other sort of settings for learning. I think it is an important connection point for us.
Steph, this is Greg. If I may interject, because
sure.
I was on the Kid Museum website, Cara, because I was so interested in the co-location with the library, and yeah. We've seen here locally with the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh. So the Children's Museum just opened up a new building space immediately next door called Museum Lab. Mm-hmm. And so in that space, they've built a makerspace particularly designed for teens. The mm-hmm. space next door in their main building is for younger children and adults. But they've very actively thought about the partnerships in that building space. And so they've invited in the Carnegie Mellon University Educational Technology Center to have a satellite office. Also, the University of Pittsburgh's research team in out-of-school environments to conduct research and evaluation. Any number of artists they've provided space to, but also a site for a school, for a middle school, as well as programs like Reading is Fundamental and an advocacy organization called Allies for Children. And I think it's in that blending of organizations that that making really takes on a greater sensibility and mindset, because it's not something that's separate and apart, but it's part of things, which I think is critically important, and the physical co-location of organizations and entities can help facilitate that.
Right. I mean, I couldn't agree more, and I think you know, for us, we have these deep partnerships with schools, but there's also this benefit of demonstrating that learning happens outside of the school walls, and this kind of bridging of the in-school and out of school, that is something that's really important to us philosophically, that being located in a library but working closely with schools is something that, you know, again, it sends a message without you having to print it on a piece of paper for people, right? I mean, it helps to also say it in our all of our materials, but I think it just is really clear that, you know, following in the footsteps of Pittsburgh, as you're describing, Gregg, of really trying to build out this ecosystem of new ways and new platforms for learning for kids in our community.
This is Kumar. I guess one question I would have, just to build on Gregg, your point, was I know you all, Gregg, you especially, and others have been experimenting with this notion of space. So whether it's converting libraries, whether it's doing it in school, are there sort of interesting lessons learned about what space conversions can look like when paired with making and remake principles?
Well, so we subscribe to the basic premise that Bill Strickland at the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild articulated 50 years ago, and that is environment drives behavior. There's if you believe in that sensibility, and there's enough evidence and research to back that up, then how do we, I think the question for us all then is, how do we take advantage of space? Sometimes it's in a school building or a library corner, but it can also be in a doctor's office. It can be in a laundromat. It can be in a bus stop. How do we start to think about spaces where people are either obviously learning or they're waiting and might be prompted to learn in creative ways? And I know this, having mentioned the museum, the Children's Museum, they're really interested, Kumar, in these third spaces and how we think about public third spaces to facilitate modern learning, particularly maker-centered learning, in all the ways that we can.
Yeah, I mean, one of the potential collaborations we're exploring here is we think about space is occupying, commercial office space that's underutilized, but in collaboration with the school, that would be a sort of career tech high school of the future, and that kind of coupling of the sort of continuation of the maker experience into more of a school setting, but doing that, making use of existing spaces in the community and showing that that can occur outside of traditional learning environments or traditional settings for schools and museums. I think is it's really engaging for our community to see those reuses. I know that that certainly is something that Pittsburgh has pioneered with so much of this work.
And I think it's important too, right? I mean, this idea of maker desert spaces, right? Where aren't there access to maker spaces, invention spaces, tinkering labs? And how do we take advantage of mobile labs, of pop-up spaces, of neighborhood events and festivals or parades where something might just appear even temporarily? Space sometimes conveys permanence, and I think if we're going to creatively address issues of equity, until we can get to permanence, we need to think of temporary spaces too, and how we light them up.
Yeah, and that also makes me think of the support that the work that is being done around the Rec to Tech initiative that Gregg and Kumar and others have been working on and supporting as well, which is really exciting. And actually, it looks like we've got a couple of questions for Connie that came through. Megan, would you mind reading those off for us?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, for Connie, we have just two questions. One is, how do you get the community partners involved in project events so that students have enough community partners to complete a project? And also, a clarifying question, is Project Invent an after-school program or a course?
Got it. So for the first question around community partnerships, we work with the teachers to tap local networks to figure out who could be good community partners. So that could be nonprofit organizations that work directly with different communities. So for example, in the Bay Area, we work with the Vista Center for the Blind. In Dallas, we work with the UNT program for people with autism. So it really varies, but we work with the teachers to basically identify those community partners. And for the second question, also depends on the school. A lot of them do end up being after school programs. Probably 90% of our schools are doing it as an after school program just based on the constraints within the classroom. Sometimes not allowing enough time or not allowing enough opportunity to go outside of the class to go do field trips or visits with the community partner to really engage in that rich problem solving that does have to happen in person. But hoping to play a role in how do we shift systems and policies to be able to allow classes themselves to be able to better support this type of learning that is very hands-on and community involved.
Thanks, Connie. So just in terms of being cognizant of everybody's time, I think it would be great for us to wrap up. If folks have questions for speakers, additional ones, we'll send out, each of the speakers actually included their contact information in their slides. So I'll make sure that you all have that when we send out a follow-up email. I wanted to thank Cara, Liz, Connie, Gregg, and Kumar in particular for sharing their work and their insights today on this webinar. And then also just a reminder to join us for the next call. So we'll have another set of commitment makers and another set of perspectives from different organizations supporting maker-centered learning. And the next call is going to be on Tuesday, August 20th. So same time, 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific and 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And you can actually go ahead and register for that call already if you go to the Make for All website. And if you all have any additional questions about participating in Make for All, please feel free to send me an email. My email address is stephaniesantoso@citizenschools.org. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you same time, same place next month. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.